Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be talking through how to play Goryo's Vengeance. It's been a pretty popular modern deck for a while now, and it is one that is very unlikely to see a card banned. Although there's some people have talked about the frog getting banned, but definitely doesn't play the One Ring, which is nice, and I think it will benefit from the Boros decks getting some sort of nerf. So we'll go into how to play it. If you already know how to play it and just want to see some gameplay, you can fast forward to one of the matches, but we'll jump into a modern league in a little bit. And then I'll talk why I like this build in particular. It's won by William Greenwood. Took it to a 10-1-1 finish at a modern 20K. Very impressive run, and I like his build. I made a few slight modifications, and I'll talk about that. But let's get into what the deck is, how it works, and what we're trying to do. So deck is named Goryo's Vengeance, so we'll talk about that card first. It's from an old set, Kamigawa block. Back in the day, a lot of people have wanted to go back to it for a while. We finally did, but it says it's an instant for 1 and a black that returns a legendary creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. It also has this arcane ability. It's an arcane spell, and it has splice onto arcane. Not relevant for our deck. We have no other arcane spells. Don't really know that there'd be an instance where you want to splice a Goryo's Vengeance onto a Goryo's Vengeance. Um, but we used to use that ability back in the good old Griselbrand, but that was different days. So we need legendary creatures to target with it. The ones we're playing are Atraxa and Griselbrand. I will just make a note here on the deck building choice. I do think Ulamog is kind of a trap because you can set up for turn 2 or turn 3 Goryo's Vengeance turn 3 very consistently. Sometimes turn 2 when you fetch up or play one of the Surveil lands. And if you're targeting an Ulamog, it basically does nothing, whereas when you target Atraxa or Griselbrand, you essentially can win the game. Same thing if you have the, especially turn 3 Goryos plus Ephemerate, but we'll get there. So we're not playing the Ulamog. Some lists play it, and they play more Emperor of Bones because of it. But I think that's kind of a different strategy, and I like the strategy this one's taking. So Atraxa normally costs 7 mana with 4 colors involved. So very hard to cast for fair magic, so to speak. She has Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink, all of which can be very relevant. The Flying evasion's nice because you almost always get to hit with her because she comes in with haste. The Vigilance is nice because then you can also block with her once you ephemerate her and use her on to attack on future turns. Death Touch obviously kills basically anything she'd be blocking, or blocking her would die anyway. That's less relevant, but the lifelink is also very relevant. So the biggest thing though is her ETB. You look at the top 10 cards, reveal the top 10 cards rather, and then you can take one of each type from among them. So the goal is with her trigger, you're going to fill your hand up. Sometimes you're usually getting less cards than straight drawing 7 cards with Griselbrand, but you get to see 10 cards and pick the best ones. So often you can pick up something like another Goryo's. You usually can hit an Ephemerate, which can then flicker Atraxa. And when you ephemerate her, not only do you get another trigger to look at 10 more cards, then the effect from Goryo's that says exile at the next end step will not take effect because she will be a different creature after she's been exiled and returned to the battlefield. And obviously you want to wait till ephemerate till after combat, get in for the 7 damage with the lifelink, and then ephemerate her, get the other trigger. You get to fill your hand. It makes Solitude very good when you're filling your hand. And I like this build because it goes down on creatures. We're playing only 1 Emperor, 1 Priest, and then the Solitudes and just the Legendaries, and then Philology as a, what's it called, Enabler. So off of her trigger, you usually can, you draw one of those creatures, you pick an instant, you pick a sorcery. We don't have actually no, do we actually cut all sorceries in this build? Yeah. Some builds try to play sorceries to do that, but this one is just taking advantage of like Leyline Binding, essentially being a free draw when you see it. And playing Reprieve instead of Remand is to try to up our ability to cast Solitude for free. And again, when you draw a bunch of cards with Atraxa, you're probably going to your end step with more than 7 cards in hand, especially if you ephemerate it. So you get to often take advantage of just like exiling a white card and a Solitude instead of discarding them. It could be powerful. Griselbrand is kind of like Atraxa number 5. You often can still draw like 14 cards with him. especially because you hit for 7, so you kind of get one draw 7 for free, and then usually can pay 7 life for another 7. And then remember that Solitude does gain life, and you can use it to exile your own Grizzlebrand if you really need to gain life. If you don't hit the Ephemerate, for instance. But same thing with Grizzlebrand. You usually are digging for an Ephemerate. You want to Ephemerate him. Then he gets to just sit and play, and you can wait to actually draw cards on their turn, so you don't discard them to hand size. Either one of these, usually if you get the turn 2 or turn 3 Goryos on them, you're usually going to win the game. Obviously, if your opponent can counter your Goryo's Vengeance or exile cards from your graveyard or whatever, then we get to play more of a grindy game. But this deck can do that pretty well, especially because like one attracts a trigger usually can be the difference. So we'll look over here at the enablers as well as our kind of like secondary game plan is Psychic Frog. It's a ridiculously powerful card. If you haven't been playing Modern lately, since Modern Horizons 3, you get to draw a card whenever it does damage to a player or planeswalker. It also can discard a card to put a counter on it, which for our deck is very powerful because we can discard our Atraxas or Grizzlebrands in order to have our target for Goryo's Vengeance. That's why playing this or Philology or Faithful Mending or Tainted Indulgence on turn 2 usually sets up our turn 3 win, or turn 3 Goryos at least. And then the Frog can also exile cards from the graveyard in order to gain flying, which is relevant again because you want to draw cards. Frog is kind of an inevitable win con, where if they don't deal with Frog, if they're busy trying to stop your Goryo's plan, Frog often wins us games. Philology is more of just an enabler for our Goryo's plan. Mills 3 cards. The fact that you can take a non-creature, non-land card is strong. And again, we're playing less creatures than the builds that try to do Emperor and Ulamog as well. So you get to draw things like, counterspells and Goryos and Faithful Mendings and so on, ley lines, and leave your creatures in the graveyard, which is nice. Sometimes you don't draw the card. You'll just mill 3 and leave them all there, depending on what you're trying to do. Faithful Mending is draw 2, discard 2. You also gain 2 life, and it also has flashback. It's also a white and a blue card, which means you can pitch it to Force or Solitude, which is very strong. And notably as well, Atraxa, right? Extra Atraxas can be pitched to Solitudes or Force of Negations as well. Used to also be able to use them for Griefs, but we're not playing those anymore because they're banned. Tainted Indulgence is sometimes better than Faithful Mending, and that's why we're playing, out of the 5, we're playing a 3-2 split. I'm trusting that, William Goodwood or whatever, what was it? I always want to say it wrong. Greenwood knew what he was doing here. I like the rest of his list, so I'm going to trust his split until I get more testing in. My gut wants to just play the 4 Faithful Mending because I want to have more cards to pitch to Solitude, and I like gaining the 2 life and having flashback. But Tainted Indulgence sometimes just draws 2 cards, and you don't have to discard, which in the grindy matches makes it a lot better. Against counterspell decks, against decks that have exiled your graveyard. Exiled your Atraxas, but allow you to kind of fill your graveyard with other stuff. The Ephemerates I already talked about a bit, but you can also obviously use Ephemerates to kind of cheat out Solitude. If you pitch a white card and have 1 white mana up, you can Ephemerate the Solitude. So you'll get 2 triggers, so you can exile 2 opponent creatures, and you'll end up with the 3-2 in play. And then on your next upkeep, you can get another trigger off the Solitude. So very effective against the Boros energy decks of the format. If you have Solitude plus any other white card plus Ephemerate plus land in your starting hand, on turn 1 you can get rid of 3 creatures, which sometimes you have to because Ocelot's a crazy card. But we'll see what happens with the bans. The rest, kind of speak for themselves. Reprieve, like I said, it's Remand, but it's slightly better in this deck because we'd rather have cards that pitch to Solitude than Force of Negation on average, or sometimes just casting Force of Negation, right? But it can protect Goryos because we can Goryos, like I said, on their end step, and Force of Negation cast for free on our opponent's turn by exiling a blue card. The 1 Teferi, Teferi is very powerful. I think as the format shifts, you might want more Teferi in the main. I would be, like I said, I'd be surprised if Psychic Frog gets banned, and because we're likely to see Ring plus at least 1 card from Boros Energy get banned, I think we'll see a lot more Psychic Frog, like Murktide decks and Jeskai decks, and maybe just straight blue-white decks, as well as Blue Belcher, one of the decks obviously I play a lot on this channel. So Teferi is very good against counter magic. so we might end up wanting more of him. Obviously, it, you know, works off of Atraxa as kind of a free draw because there aren't any other planeswalkers in the deck. Like I said, this guy William or Billy, I'm gonna call him Billy from now on. Billy Greenwood is playing a lot of one ofs, which at first glance looks kind of weird, but in practice I've found to be actually very good because you want to really maximize your Atraxa triggers, so that when you get a Goryo's, it will hopefully close the game out. And I think he's done a really good job of balancing the deck to do that. The one change I made is switching out. I really wanted to play the Force Solitude, and again, I might just change that after the bans happen. He was playing one touch the Spirit Realm. Is that what it's called? Which I really like as a tech card. It kind of does two things. The main ability, right, is just a 3-mana exile an artifact or creature. So not exciting. But the channel ability for 2 mana essentially acts as a 5th ephemerate, because you can exile a artifact or creature and then return it under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So I kind of like that. It's kind of, again, a free one off of the Atraxa trigger because we're not playing a lot of enchantments, and allows you to maybe get a Goryo's and the touch, whereas you can't get Goryo's and ephemerate off of Atraxa. So might switch that back. Like I said, right now I like having the 4 Solitudes. We'll talk briefly about the sideboard. I did change up some of the sideboard, both because of budget somewhat as well as personal preference. One card I like that a good old Billy thought of is a Mirko Vosk. And he's essentially an anti-Belcher card that works with Goryos. We've seen Undercity Informer, right, show up. But he essentially acts as an Undercity Informer, except that you can Goryo's Vengeance him. So like turn 2 could kill a Belcher deck that can't counter it, the Goryos. Assuming you get him in your graveyard, obviously. Or turn 3, usually more consistently. But he's a 2/4 flying. When he does damage, they have to reveal cards until they hit 4 lands and put them in their graveyard. Would also just be good in certain grinding matchups that don't use the graveyard. But I think it's mainly just here as an anti-Belcher card. Emrakul is mostly an anti-mill card. Although if you're playing against somebody who like plays Surgical and or Extirpate, you might just bring in the Emrakul as another win con. It does shuffle itself away, but that is a trigger. And so when you can discard it, say to Psychic Frog, and Goryo's Vengeance the Emrakul in response to the trigger. And so you can actually use Goryo's Vengeance on Emrakul, which is a lot of fun. Like I said, I think Teferi is really strong. I put 2 in the sideboard. Billy was only playing 1. He had the 2 Subtlety, the 2 March of Otherworldly Light. I like those. March is a good catch-all for any like hate cards. Subtlety comes in the decks where we don't really want the force of negations, right? We'd rather hit creatures and or planeswalkers. And then Wrath of Skies is a good cleanup card. Like that it's flexible. Also like that it's a sorcery. This could be Supreme Verdict. And again, if we're playing more blue decks, I think it should be Supreme Verdict. But for now, this is better because you can cast it for 3 and kill a lot of Boros energy. And then the Consigned Memories we are very familiar with as Belcher players. Very annoying, the extra force. And Surgicals. Surgicals are, anything using the graveyard is good against the Oculus decks, is good against any deck playing Flage. We really don't want Flage to resolve. Obviously, we can Solitude Flage, but we'd rather them not get all the triggers and gain all that life. Because at the end of the day, we are winning through combat damage. And like I said, a lot of games we actually end up winning with Psychic Frogs. So it's an interesting blend. It is a combo deck. It is a graveyard deck, but it ends up feeling a little more like a control deck some of the times. Playing Frog, counter magic, removal. It's a weird balance and a delicate balance. And like I said, I like Billy Greenwood's list. I think he found a good balance of it. I didn't talk about the Emperor and Priest. I like Priest as essentially a white Emperor, because as a white card you can pitch it to the Solitude. Emperor is better with like Ephemerate, but Priest also has the Unearth ability. So you can discard it early and use it as a late game card. When you unearth it, it has haste, so you can use its ability the same turn. Obviously, unearth cost is 5, which is a little steep, but we're pretty good at hitting our land drops in this deck. For a deck with so few lands, right? with the Mendings, Indulgences, and Archaeologists, and then Atraxa Triggers, we're pretty good at hitting our land drops. And then Emperor is just acting as an extra Goryo's here. You know, a 4-mana Goryo's essentially. Um, it can also steal an opponent's card, which is something that usually doesn't come up because it's typically hitting, you know, your own Ulamog or something. But like I said, I like this build not playing Ulamog, playing less creatures overall, and trying to maximize Atraxa triggers, and I think it's played pretty well. So we'll go ahead and jump into game. I guess before we jump into game, I just want to briefly mention the mana base. We are playing a Triumph, and this is to enable the Leyline Binding. Our deck is Esper colors, right? So Plains, Island, and Swamp are basically all our cards are either one of those, except for the Triumph, and the Triumph acts as the forest and mountain. But essentially, every fetchable card in our deck is Island, except for the basic Plains and Swamp. And 8 of our fetches can then therefore fetch every card in the deck, except for the opposing basic Marsh Flats, right? We play 2 of those, which can't fetch the Triumph, but they can fetch every other card except basic Island. And we want to be able to fetch our Plains and Swamp because there are a lot of Harbinger of the Seas out there. Not really that many Blood Moons, but that is kind of our Blood Moon fix as well, right? Is getting our basic lands out whenever we can. We'll go ahead and jump into a Modern League. Goryo's Atraxa, let's do it. If you aren't already, would love if you sub to the channel. Gonna be doing some giveaways. I think I'm gonna give away like maybe some deck boxes or like other physical Magic stuff, as well as maybe online. Just give away some tickets or chests. It's a little weird, you know, Magic Online. If you're playing Magic Online, it's like specific cards aren't always great because you have to trade them away anyway. So I think I just do straight tickets or maybe the chests, because that if you're someone who likes to open packs, you can open the chests or you can just sell them for tickets. But I want to do that. Want to do that. Want to do a little more video editing. You know, put out a little better quality product, so to speak. But waiting to get the subs there to support it. So we're on the play, which is great. Against Odin 2015. This hand is pretty keepable. We are, like I said, we're not as like dedicated a combo deck as some of the other decks I've played on the channel, where you have to have Goryos or have to have a Atraxa in your hand. I have tested out some of the Sultai lists that aren't playing Atraxa, and in testing just really found, I think I'm just going to be turn 2ing Frog. Let's get the Triumph now. That also kind of doesn't give away what we're doing, which is fun. For a while, I was really resistant to play the Atraxa lists. In the past, I didn't have as good of a time playing Atraxa and just wanted to play Goryos and it feel more like old Goryos. Wow, that is quite possibly the worst card to see. I don't think our opponent knew. What are they playing? Tron, just eldrazi Tron with main deck Relic. That certainly puts a damper on our game plan. So I think we're just playing the Frog here. Don't really need to get basic Swamp. I'm not as concerned about my life total. So we have to play the aggressor, and we can't rely on Goryos. Yeah, because they're going to probably hold up a Relic activation for the rest of the game. If they happen to leave themselves open, we'll try to take advantage of it, right? But we're not going to hold our breaths. I think I'm going to go ahead and fetch a Surveil Land here. I have a lot of white cards in my hand. This will be an interesting matchup. This is not a great start for us. Couple things, right? We can't cast this right now. I doubt we're going to get them to pop this Relic prematurely, so to speak. But I think we do want to go ahead and buff up our Frog a little bit. Okay. I'll get rid of the lane. We don't need to give it flying, so I don't know why, you know. Tempted to just get rid of Ephemerate. I'll get rid of one, yeah. We'll keep the rest for now. Get in for 3, draw a card. And then we'll go ahead and play this Philology. We might on our upkeep just Ephemerate it. So ideally we get them to, hey, that's a card, I guess. Losing another frog isn't great. We get them to pop this relic, and then set up a Goryo's on an Atraxa or something. But if they have just natural Tron here, whew, we dodged it. They didn't exile any Tron pieces. They exiled Ulamog. I'll exile Ephemerate, I guess. Technically, having 5 CMCs is good for Tainted Indulgence, but we only have 3 right now, which is 0, 1, and 2. So, not so much a consideration. So the idea here is, do we want to just Ephemerate Philology? They are obviously holding this up. I think I do. Philology hit an Atraxa, as well as a Solitude. We'll play the Marsh Flats because I can fetch a basic Plains and hold up Reprieve. And I'm going to go ahead and discard another one here. Well, I also could flashback Faithful Mending, but for 4 this turn, that puts him at 13. We draw a card here. I'm trying to think if we can make this a 2 more turns. We don't want to give our opponent a lot of turns because eventually they will just like cast an Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger or whatever. 4 mana, okay. They can't really tap out. They don't know that we don't have a whatever it's called, Goryo's Vengeance. But I think we can 2-turn them here. We need to do map. They already played a land this turn. I could reprieve this, cast it again. They'd have to tap out to activate it. I think I'll do that. I really just want to draw a card. It doesn't seem like they're going to cast anything else. And this forces them to kind of have to like pick between mapping for the Tron piece or activating Relic. They don't have anything to stop the frog, I think. I don't know that we're actually going to do this again. If it misses, we don't have any more cards in hand for frog, and right now it's going to do a damage, so. So 4, 5. We need to do 6 this turn, so I just need to discard at least 1 card, which is pretty easy. I think we'll just discard. How many more fetchables do we have? We have quite a few fetchables. Discard this. Probably play the Flooded Strand unless we draw another, whatever it's called. So draw another land. And here you're just seeing the power of Frog, right? Like we face turn 1 Graveyard Hate. I think I'm going to play this out because we can still hold up Reprieve. No. I don't think playing it out actually... What does it do? If they like all is dust us, we're still in trouble if we play out the Priest. I guess if they all is dust... All is dust plus Relic, we're not going to be able to Priest back anything. Yeah. I mean, I can hold up Reprieve. So they go get a land now. They have 2, 4, 6, 8, 11. If they have Ulamog, they could hit Priest plus Frog. And I could Solitude it. That gains them a bunch of life. I would just Reprieve it, but then I need to hit Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna pass. Don't know what our opponent has. They're gonna have a lot of mana and a lot of options. Obviously, wish we just had a Goryo's. We've seen almost half our deck, 24 cards, and we haven't seen one of them. So it is what it is. Also can hard cast this, I suppose. But our opponent gets a lot of mana now, and they still have lots of cards in hand. What are they doing? Devour. Devour our frog. In response. Do I just want to reprieve it? They get to do it again next turn. They have 4 mana left. If I solitude it, they gain 3, or gain 6, which I don't really want to do. Let's surveil first. Reprieve it with the trigger still on the stack. Do we want another solitude? No. I'm not going to get Goryo's off. But I think I really just want to draw another frog, so. Reprieve it in case there's something we just want to discard. I don't know what it would be, but. Yeah, that's where reprieve didn't feel great. Okay. I guess we could still solitude this turn, but I don't know what else they'd be doing that we care about. We'll get rid of another land. I don't know. At this point, it's like, why are we activating it? Like, it's really only relevant if you spend all the mana. I think we'll, flashback mending. Try to hit. We gotta make them pop this relic. Our graveyard's pretty full, but only one Atraxa. Blue, colorless. We'll leave up best colors. I think I want to keep force. Okay, we got that. We'll tuck a mending and a. I don't really want to lose priest. I guess solitude. So we're gonna do this to make them use the relic. And now they go. I guess I should have actually just kept another. Sorry, I should have kept that faithful mending to try to set up another Goryo's. That was a mistake, I think. Weird matchup. Them having an answer for a frog that we can't counter, right? Because it was a trigger. It's definitely a bummer. Thought not. I assume they just take the priest. We don't really want to sink into super a thought not seer, so. They could just do the 2, 4, 5, 6. They have 7. So yeah, they can cast the Devour again and get rid of our Philology. Or something even bigger. Nope, just Devour again. Yep. So I should have kept a Faithful Mending. That's on me. Hopefully we draw exactly Goryo's plus what's her face. I think we keep binding. We can binding the thought not to draw another card. Guess we don't really need another land. I know this is a 6/6, but we're trying to win, not just survive another turn. I guess we'll play this out. If Sinking to Stupor was a Faithful Mending, we'd be in a better spot, although they might have taken it. With Thought Not. What is this? Oh, it's dust. Okay. It's probably game. Part of this was just turn 1 relic. Part of it was not hitting a Goryo's in the top 30 cards. Took us a very long time to hit one. That will be game. There's a frog. There's a Goryo's. That would have been great. Wasn't expecting to see Tron, but I think people are testing out decks. We didn't see Ring, but they might be playing Ring. They do have All's Dust, but most of their cards don't use it. We definitely want Consign. Teferi's not super relevant. A lot of their stuff is good if they return it to their hand. Could bring in Mr. Mind Drinker. Surgical. I think Surgical's a little too cute trying to hit one of their lands. I'm trying to think. Subtlety's pretty good. I like Subtlety better than Reprieve. Reprieve. I don't know. Bouncing any of their stuff just usually is not very good. Leyline Binding is also like kind of a liability. But we don't really have like good removal. Like Wrath of Skies is not good removal. Subtlety isn't great either. It's interesting to have a matchup where I want more things out than in. I guess I'll take in March because I try to exile their stuff. Like their maps or something. Slow them down. I think that's better than Reprieve on average. One more card. Do I want a Surgical? Do I want a Subtlety? Do I want to try to like get cute with this guy? He does 4 cards a piece. They're probably playing like 22 lands. So it's kind of like that's still like what, 4 attacks on average. Could bring in Emrakul. That's where I want more Consign. I'll bring him in. Why not? We have our colors. No fetches. But this hand would be great against a creature deck where we could turn 1 a Solitude and ephemerate it. It's just not likely good enough against them. I guess I can turn 2 Faithful Mending, though. I'd rather it be a frog, but they likely brought in more Graveyard Hate, so I don't think we'll go for the turn 1 Solitude. We'll go for this. They have no Devourer trigger. We'll put one in our graveyard because we already have one in hand. Ugin's Lab. Exiling a Dust. Making a Talisman. I could kill the Talisman. Guess it will require me to pitch a card, which feels kind of bad. I think we'll just hold up and go likely for Faithful Mending. I think that's what we're going to do. We have Triumph into Binding if we need it. Karn. Solitude doesn't hit that. What are they going to get with Karn? Because we can use this to hit whatever they get. Stonebrain. Yep. Yeah, Solitudes just aren't good in this matchup. I need to keep the land for the binding. Pitch some more creatures. Play this. Binding Karn. He still gets the Stoneblade activated next turn. Which doesn't feel great, but he's got to be able to do that anyway, like even if I hold up March. Wish I had more white sources. No fetches has been interesting as well. Always a bummer when the deck like doesn't do its best in a video where I'm trying to show how the deck works, but it does happen. They could name Goryo's. I mean, Atraxa is a good name. I would probably name Goryo's Vengeance. Yeah. That seems good. We technically can cast Atraxa. We have a green white and blue and black source in the deck. So late game, but this Tron is typically pretty good at closing the game out once they have their Tron online. They have tower in mind already. Opponent's looking at our deck for a while. Man, I mean, our starting hand, this game, this draw would be so good against into Boreal's Energy. The Solitude Ephemerate plan plus multiple marches would have been PA Stay Resistance. But I guess our deck does not play super well into Tron, which if Tron becomes the top deck after the ring ban, doesn't make a lot of sense. It feels like that probably wouldn't be true, but it's possible, obviously. I think we're going to have to end up playing out our Solitude as a threat here. Really, our only other option is to flashback a Mending, but without our Goryo's Vengeance and playing only one Emperor, one Priest, our Mendings become a lot less good when we don't really care about the life gain. So it'll cost us 3 cards to make a Solitude. Oh, they can just all this stuff. They're going to get rid of our Binding. Can I do anything about that? Why can't you hit Planeswalkers? Why can't you hit Planeswalkers? So in that case, let's do this. Because cards in our hand are essentially useless. Got another Binding, I suppose. Keep both Marches or a Solitude in March. Keep a Solitude in March. It's slightly more flexible. Still 4 cards in hand, but they want their Karn back. We'll see what they get with Karn. They have another Stone Brain? I don't know. Yep. Of course. They're at 9 mana. Should have just gotten Cityscape Leveler, I feel like. Do we want to just Binding this again? I think we do. Doesn't feel great. And pass. We can consign this, I suppose. Oh no, we definitely want to do this. We'll cast targeting the Sowing Mycospawn. Cancel. Cast with Replicate, targeting this. We want 2 replicates. You gotta make sure you click the right triggers. So this one will go to that one. This one will go to that one. And then we're gonna go ahead and get a Meticulous Archive here. I guess Godless Shrine might have been better with only one other black source, but that's interesting. Well, we can cast it, so we'll take a threat. He now can cast but not activate the Stone Brain, or if he has a land drop, he can still cast and activate Stone Brain. Means he's got to shuffle away. I should have waited to surveil, but it is what it is. Does he just name Atraxa now? I'm trying to think. Oh no, he should name Psychic Frog 100%. That is our best card remaining in the deck. But he got the Atraxas. Interesting. I mean, we're still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're still 2 lands away, right? Or 3. She cost 8. Is it 4 and 4 colors or 3 and 3 colors? I always forget. It's 3 and 4 colors, sorry. So it's 7 mana. Guess we're only 2 lands away. Well, we drew the frog. Can march something, but not enough for something. Okay, here we go. Besiegeing our ley line. Man, Yeah, we'll use your ability. I'll get the swamp. Oh, my pretty white borders. What do we get now? They should just get Cityscape Leveler and start hitting our lands, honestly. They should be playing that card. Yeah, Sundering Titan's fine. They'll get to hit 1, 2, 3. Mountain, island, plains, swamp. Redonkulous. Good games, opponent. Yeah, I don't. That's not a matchup I'd want to play. Obviously, we can get there. Maybe I should have mulled a little more on game 2, looking for like a turn 2 hand. That hand I kept was good against other decks, but not against that deck. So, it's always good to be honest with oneself. Hopefully get a win in here. Just to kind of show you the power of the deck, because that game didn't feel super powerful, obviously. But it is what it is. We did get to see the power of like Psychic Frog there. And if he had only had something like All Is Dust or a Karn, you know, trying to find an answer to Frog, we would have been okay. Devour just provide an answer where we didn't have consigned main deck to stop it. One can have a wit, but not a witless. If anyone's a Brandon Sanderson fan, I am currently reading Wind and Truth. It's been a lot of fun. Come on. Only 594 active players. The number has steadily been going down. I think everyone is excited for the ban, depending on what it is, I suppose. If they somehow announce they're not banning the One Ring or anything from Boros, I think there won't be anyone playing Modern for the next 3 months. It'll just be Boros decks playing against Boros decks. Yeah, this is a keep. This is a turn 3 Goryo's Vengeance hand. Oh, opponent's doing something spicy. What are we doing there, Kevin? Indestructible artifact land. Is this land destruction? If so, both how dare you and also I like the cut of your jib. Let's see what's going on over there, opponent. If I get turned 1 by storm again, we're canceling the videos. Just wait for the ban. Ancient Strengths. Not what I expect to see out of a Gemstone Cavern deck, but you've got me intrigued into what you're doing there, friend. Ugin's Lab, okay. Trying to make lots of mana. Playing something big, likely an eldrazi. Emrakul, cool. Oh, we're a breach deck. Through the breach, that plays. Why would you play an indestructible artifact land? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. We might just get through the breach Emrakul next turn, so what we're doing might not matter at all. But we want the Meticulous Archive. We definitely want that card because it can stop through the breach. And might be our only chance of interacting. Power of Force and Negation might save us here. Swamp is a little awkward because it can't Faithful Mending. So I am going to shock in this. It does kind of signal we're holding something up. Although we're like kind of not. We're not shocking to hold up Force, but we are doing it to hold up Faithful Mending. There is some debate to Faithful Mending first. Oh, only a tap source. That's great. Raging Ravine. It's been a long time since I've seen that guy, but man, used to be so great out of the Jund decks. Okay, opponent, let me do stuff. I want to do stuff. I mean, they're playing a lot of tap lands if they're playing the bridges and ravine. Okay, some options here. question is whether we want to go for a Goryo's on Atraxa or Grizzlebrand. I think we'll just discard both. We have another blue card for force, so we're kind of open, so to speak. Oh, cancel. I can't do that yet. Can you go to my turn? So we'll play out Swamp, and we'll try to Goryo's on, I guess, Atraxa. Downside of Atraxa is they see all the cards. The upside is, I guess, lifelink for the most part. If our opponent has interaction here, I'd be impressed. I guess they could play, what could they play? Who knows what they're playing? Something. Ooh, Cozy Command. I should have known that. Should have expected it. Yeah, they blank our Goryos. Doesn't feel great. But hopefully we get to blank there through the reach. On the following turn. Repay the favor. Kevin Black. Rough that we drew 2 lands there. Obviously, I would have actually preferred to play the fetch to the basic had I known that was how it was going to go down. And maybe I should have just waited until we cast Goryos. There wasn't really a reason to have a mana open already, but I was leaving a white mana open for Ephemerate, which you do want to do. But I could have left that open, so to speak, by not doing my land drop. Oh man, Besaidu Who Shelters All is not good for us. What is this deck? Our opponent is like playing a lands deck. I assume they have Sowing Mycospawn with the, maybe these are like one-ofs. Solitude's nice. We don't have a white card currently. Because we're not going to get to force a negation. Yeah, we want to dig for the white card. Discard a card. I think we'll go ahead and just discard our island here. So now we can Solitude the Emrakul. They get to gain 15, but I wonder if we're also waiting because like they've when did Steam open? Stop that. Do we want a Falaji here? It doesn't really affect our Solitude plan. Might as well. I'll just go get the Hollow Fountain. Yeah. How far is he from hard casting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He has 8 mana. He could do an Emrakul the Promised End, which would hurt. There's Ephemerate. At least we've milled away some lands. For a 19-land deck, this deck often looks like it's playing like 24. I think I mentioned that it's good at hitting its land drops, but we've been very good at hitting lands, which isn't the best. It's not the worst, but it's not the best either. If we had one more mana, that'd be nice with the Solitude. So let's hope our opponent like just goes for it and tries to breach an enemy here. No. They haven't drawn a through the breach. Yes, must be what's going on. Wonder what their other cards are. Or they gotta try to activate Ravine here. Start getting in while the getting's good. Can this even hit Ravine? It just says creature. It doesn't say non-land. So that's good. What are we doing there, Kevin? Crazy stuff happening over on that side. Trying to think how relevant Fury is. Not a ton, I guess. I guess it stops like a breach on our end step or something, which is nice. Okay. Another Ephemerate. I suppose I'll go for... Oh, that's the wrong button. Teferi specifically to stop an end step for the breach. And I'll just return one of these. Make them recast it. Could also get rid of a spawn token. It's about the same. He can sack a spawn token, which would make me not draw a card, so I want to draw a card. I was hoping to hit my 5th land there, but it is what it is, because we could maybe hard cast the Solitude. But again, our Force doesn't really work because they have Boseiju. They also might start attacking with this Ravine. I can now exile one Ephemerate with the Solitude and then Ephemerate it. Problem is then we wouldn't be great against a breach. Recasting the Talisman. It costs 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could activate this. If I were them, I'd start attacking with this because it becomes a 4/4 right away, which will kill this and start putting pressure on our Teferi. Oh, this feels like a breach. This feels breachy. Feels very breachy. All his dust can't be countered. Okay. It's an interesting line. I guess it just leaves Ravine open, but like I was saying, they could just attack once and it was already kind of open. This allows us to hold up Solitude, which is nice. If Ravine is kind of their only plan now. We could Philology if we're trying to like set up our win, but I think we're kind of the control deck now. No Ravine attack. Interesting. 2 cards in hand. He could return Emrakul and still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. I guess we'll do this. Ideally, we want a 3rd white source. If we can Solitude plus Ephemerate. If we draw another land. Also have to debate on whether or not we want to throw out the Philology here. Or flashback Amending. Get rid of this Force. Yeah, I think we'll probably just flashback this Mending right now on the end step. Don't have a lot of white sources, so we'll take this one. Pass me priority, please, Mr. Kevin. We might not be able to finish a game 3 at this rate. I know we're only like a minute and a half, close to 2 minutes up on clock now, but to be fair, I have never seen my opponent's deck, so I haven't necessarily been playing fast. At least not this build of it. Well, excuse me. Got an Atraxa, which is great. They might be holding another Kozilek's Command this whole time, but we'll force them to use it, I think. Especially with the Ephemerates in hand. Seems worth it. They can make it uncounterable. We'll take our draw. Another Atraxa. Interesting. Do I want to try to Philology first and like mill more? No. We'll just go for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're 2 lands away from being able to hardcast the Atraxa, which is probably going to end up... Okay. Well, that's nice. We got her. We already have Ephemerates, but we'll probably take another one. We'll take the Frog. There's only one... Or there's 2 lands. We'll just take the Sewers. And what do we want? I guess Sync gets around Boseiju. Right now we really don't need another Goryos or Ephemerate, so I'm going to do that. Weird to only get 3 cards off of her, but we shall get more. Go to combat, attack for 7. And then we'll ephemerate off of this. And we'll take Emperor, Leyline Binding, the Triome, Reprieve. Nice, we'll take that. We can even use that this turn. We can't play this. Don't want to hold up Reprieve. Or we can just hold up Solitude. I want to get the frog out and discard some stuff so we're getting the value out of these cards instead of just losing them. Okay. So if they have the Through the Breach for Emrakul this turn, we have to use the Solitude on it. Which feels a little bad because we tapped out there to get the frog out. But if they don't have exactly that, we set ourselves up to win very quickly, which is nice. We can win next turn by exiling. Yeah, okay. And, you know, even if we had a Solitude and Emrakul, because it's only protection from spells, not permanents, they would gain 15 life, but we would take that down pretty quick. Weird matchup. I think we still want our forces, right? They don't always have Beseiju. We want consigns. They play mostly colorless cards. Do we want this guy, maybe? Subtlety doesn't actually hit. We didn't see any creature cards. Fury stops stuff, but it's hard because it's like Leyline Binding and Solitude are answers to like they resolve a Through the Breach, but we ideally just stop them from doing Through the Breach. Priest feels a little slow in this one. Trying to think. The main thing Fury also does is stop what happened there with the Kozilek's command becoming a hate card against us. But what do we want to cut? Cut maybe a little bit of an enabler, like mending. We need white cards if we're going to rely on Solitude. March probably isn't ever hitting good old Emmy, but could hit some of their... They're probably bringing in like relics or, something that hits graveyard that's a artifact. I like having Sink into Stupor and Reprieve. Maybe Force is too narrow, but it is free and we have consigned for other stuff. It's hard to cut like Archaeologists or Mendings. Guess we'd want to cut Archaeologists if anything. Maybe one Ephemerate. Bring in this. Yeah, I think that's fine. I am obviously assuming they're Through the Breach deck. We didn't technically see it, but I don't know why else they'd be on red-green mana and have Emrakul in their deck and be playing like Ugin's Lab plus Gemstone Cavern. And Ancient Stirrings. They might be playing that, what is it, Yigastrill or whatever, the tree that exiles cards from your graveyard and then can play them. It's all colorless mana. I think it's a 3-drop and then 4 to activate. Oh, our opponent's up to 76 cards. Were they at 76 last game? Last turn? Did they accidentally not finish sideboarding? This hand isn't great, but it can turn to frog. And it has some bindings. We have to get another fetch or any other land to kind of set up the Leyline Binding. If we draw one of our lands, we can play it turn 1 and then use one of these fetches for Triome after playing frog. We'll see. We'll see what they do. They kept top, so they like the card they had there. Feels like they're playing a lot of one-of lands. This could have been another ephemerate, so we'll kind of keep that in mind. Third fetch, sure. Play out that one. Don't think it makes much of a difference. Seems like a lot less fast of a start from them with no Gemstone Cavern, no Ugin Lab. Well, they might have Ugin Lab now, but that game it felt like we had to start worrying about a breach after turn like 2 or 3. This game seems slower. Temple, yeah. I do think they're playing Michael Spawn. It seems like it. Feels like it. We'll get the sewers because we're trying to play Frog here. We'll put a Mending in the graveyard. Frog already gives us an enabler as far as getting cards out of our hand. We got white cards galore. We'd rather draw something else. So probably like just fetch shock. Either of these can get the Triumph, which is nice. Yeah, I'm not as concerned about my life total in this matchup, so I'm going to fetch shock and just get this Frog out. And starting next turn, we can hold up Binding. Good. There's a debate for that being the Hollow Fountain, but kind of effectively, it does kind of the same thing. We're going to fetch an island with Polluted Delta, right? Ketria Triumph. Essentially, it's just island plus you can cast Binding for 1 mana. Like, that's what it really reads in this deck. Blast Zone. Are they going to put that up to 2? Trinisphere. Interesting. Slows us down our solitudes and ephemerates and makes Binding cost 3, but yeah, I mean, it definitely slows our deck down. I think it's worth playing over, I'm sure, other cards our opponent plays, but it's not like against Storm where this like, well, I have to remove this or I can't win. It's like I'm very capable of winning through Trinisphere. They're not gonna have. I guess they could Ugin's Lab plus have Breach next turn, so that is relevant. Let's discard this, make him a little bigger. I can't fetch a Triumph and cast Binding with Trinisphere out. Does effectively kind of stop. So I'm going to just go to combat first, swing, and see what our draw is before deciding exactly how I want to play this as to best avoid dying. That doesn't really do anything. So I guess we're just going to fetch the Triome, and we're going to kind of have our shields down for a turn, or do I want to Fury this? I'll Fury it and let them think we have, oh no, I really want the Triumph. Shoot. Because of our draws, we really need Triumph, so we can't actually use this. So we might just be dead to a Breach Emrakul here. It is possible, though unlikely. I kind of gave away. I shouldn't have fetched if I wasn't going to play Teferi. I was debating on it. I could have Teferi Trinisphere and drawn. Ooh. Interesting. So we're not dead. Well, they have like a Thought Knot or Sower here. What costs 5? Oh, it's not a eldrazi. It just costs 4. Karn, maybe? What else is our opponent playing? Chalice on 2. Okay. I mean, we have an answer for it right here, so I'm not as concerned with that. I think I'm going to go ahead and just like discard one of these lands, I suppose. I want to kill him faster than not. I mean, I could just hold up Binding, I guess. I guess I'll just hold up Binding. That's fine. I could also like to Fury bounce this or this. That technically exposes us. So I'm just going to pass. Can fetch a Meticulous Archive. Can binding an Emrakul or binding on their end step. We'll just binding the Trinisphere, I suppose. We had to still pay 3 for binding, but we needed this to reduce its costs. We only have to pay 3. Which is weird, but it is what it is. We'll get the archive. Definitely don't need a third ephemerate. That's why I sideboard one of these out. We'll cast this. We had to pay 3. We'll use it on the Trinisphere so that our next Leyline Binding only casts 1. They have to put a lot of counters to get that up to there, so that's nice. I already have a Grizzlebrand in the graveyard, but I'm just going to go ahead and discard this. If I discard one more card, they only have 2 turns after this, so that's the plan. If I have another Beseiju, they can get back their Trinisphere, but I think we're just going to hold up this Leyline Binding and say you have 2 turns. Could also bounce this Chalice, but then I guess I'm still holding up Binding. Let's do that. Oh, he can use his Blast Zone. Just realized. He might kill our Frog with the Blast Zone. Oh, he conceded. Okay. Well, there you have it. Got to see the deck win with like a combination of using Goryos and Frog. It is, like I said, it's a weird mix of a deck in that, yes, it's a combo deck, but it's not like a primarily combo deck. It's kind of a mid-rangey deck that just leverages Goryos and attracts for value. I think that's why, like, I've personally shied away from it, and others have in the past, where it's just like I want Goryos to win the game. But when I was playing, there's like a Sultai list playing Koma and Emperor Bones and Ulamog. It's like sometimes yes, you got the perfect where you got to like turn 3 in Ulamog off of Emperor, but for the most part, it's like I had a match where I Goryos the Koma and still lost, even though it connected and made the 4 tokens because it was against Fleshraker, and Fleshraker made a bunch of spawn tokens that could block it, and then all his dust cleared it, and then it was like, wow, I did all that work to like set up a Goryos and it didn't pay off. Whereas when you hit in the track side, like it always pays off. Even if it's only 3 cards, you get like the 3 best cards out of the top 10, you know. And like you saw, like I said, it hits its land drops and stuff. Not great against that eldrazi Tron list that had main deck relic, but you know, sometimes you're gonna face people with main deck relics that get it turn 1, but that's okay. If you have any questions, please ask. Give me a sub, give me a like, share, whatever you like. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a fantastic day.